If you're a .NET developer and want to know how to write the asynchronous code in the C#, so this video is for you. In this video, I'm going to tell you about how to write the asynchronous code in your .NET based application using the async and await keyword. If you're coming to the channel first time, I request you to everyone, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and click the bell icon so that the information about such video you will get notified. So let's start with the session. So what is synchronous and asynchronous? So first let's understand the difference between the synchronous and asynchronous. I'm taking here a very pretty much simple example you might be having in your real life. Let's say today you have decided to prepare the breakfast for you. So if you're preparing the breakfast for you using the synchronous style, so obviously you have to do so many tasks over there. Let's say you need to prepare a tea, you need to prepare the toast. So let's understand these steps one by one. So in case of preparing the tea, obviously first of all you will boil the water. So in order to prepare the tea, first of all you need to boil the water. After that you will add sugar, tea leaves you will add over there if you are doing all the things in synchronous way. Then later on you will add the milk and you are waiting to prepare the tea over there. After that, what you can do here, you can add a toast bread to your toaster, and after some time that toaster will pop the toast for you. Then you will add the jam on the bread, whatever the toaster you receive from the toaster. Over there you will put the jam. After that you will pour the tea in that cup. So let's say you have taken almost 15 minutes to prepare your breakfast. And all the tasks you have done one by one in synchronous way. But the same thing can be done here in asynchronous style as well. Like how we can do it here using the asynchronous style. So we can do here in asynchronous style, like first put a bowl for boiling the water, and simultaneously you are just putting the toast into the toaster. Then you have added the sugar, tea leaves. Meanwhile the toaster pops the toast. Then you can add a milk into your boiled water, and after adding that milk you can start putting the jam on the bread because toast is already ready. Then you need to pour the tea into a cup. So what you have done more than one task in parallel, or like you can say simultaneously. So in this case you can reduce the total time taken to prepare the breakfast. So let's say you have taken 10 minutes. In the asynchronous task, if you will see, we are doing here the simultaneously more than one task. So this is the way how we can save the time. So I hope this example will help you to understand what is synchronous and what is asynchronous. There can be another example as well. Let's say you are in a restaurant. In the restaurant, let's say there are 4 waiters. So if there is a synchronous activity, so what will happen? The 4 waiter can serve only 4 customers at a time. But if let's say there is an asynchronous activity, so after taking the order from the first customer, the same waiter can also take the order from the second customer, and similar way from the third customer. Even the same thing happen in the real life as well. So in this case, the only 4 waiter are able to handle more than 4 customers. So they can handle at a time, let's say 10 customers. They can handle at a time, let's say 8 customers. So ultimate goal of asynchronous programming is to improve the throughput. So like we are just increasing the throughput. Like ultimate result is going to be increased if you are following the asynchronous style of doing the things. Same thing applicable in the programming as well, as the things are applicable in the real life. Demo for async and await. Now let's understand the uses of async and await with the help of a real life example. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to create a new project. Again, I'm creating a console application, and I'm just defining here async and await sample. This is my project name. And what I will do here, let's say I'm just going to create a employee class as B has taken in the example. So public class employee, And here let's say we are returning here the employee information, and I'm just using here async, and it would be here a asynchronous method. So it will return here the data as in a string format. So get data async. So as a best practice, you should keep here async as a suffix so that you will understand it is a asynchronous method. Let's add the missing namespace system.threading.tasks. So now I will use here a HTTP client, because obviously we will have a API. So here we don't have the API. So what I will use here, I will use the JSON placeholder website. So from the JSON placeholder website, we can read the to-do data. The to-do data I'm considering as a data we having with respect to an employee. So let me create here the HTTP client class object. It is a well-known class we use for calling the REST API in the .NET based application. So I'm using here new HTTP client. Let me create the URI, API address. So I'm just using here API address, so new URI, and let me define the API address. So I'm using here the JSON placeholder to do. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to open here the JSON placeholder. So this is the URL where it will return the data to us. So it's a to-do data I'm getting over there for user ID 1, then this is the title, this is the completed, it's a to-do data. So this is the API I'm just going to call here. Let me use this one as API address. So this would be my API address like this way. And here let me create a task. I'm just creating here a task equal to, let me call here client. So sorry, it's a spelling mistake. I'm using a client, then call this API. So by passing the API address, I'm just going to call it over there. So it is actually returning the awaitable task. So to get the result from this API address, we need to use here await. I'm using here await so that we will get the result. Now what are the result we will get? We will check out over there. If task dot is success status code, if it is responding properly, obviously we will get the success status code. Let's say 200 or let's say 201. So now what are the data we are getting from this URI? The data we will read now. So let me read the data. So it would be a data, then it would be a task dot content, then I'm reading as a string async like this way. And here also I'm just going to await for the reading the data over there, await, and finally return it here, return data. If let's say we are not getting the status code as 200, so let's say I'm returning here null as a return type over there. So what we have done, wherever we are making the network call, so this is the call for calling the API. Here I'm just using here await keyword so that we can terminate here the execution of this asynchronous method call, and we will wait for getting the result from this API call. So when this API call would be succeeded, it will resume the execution from the same point again, and it will start executing the if statement. Same things happening over there. We are just going to call. So same things happening here. We are just going to read the content from this return task as a string, and finally we are assigning the data, and the data we are returning over there. But this operation is non-blocking. It is not freezing your UI, because when you will use it in the UI, it is not freezing it. It's a non-blocking call. About the blocking and non-blocking call, I will explain the next sample. So let's do focus on how the await and the async keyword we can use for calling our REST API. Now this method I can call in my main method over there. So what I'm doing here I'm just calling it. So let me create the employee class object. So emp equal to new employee class object I'm creating here. Now again where task, I can get the data. So it would be here emp dot get data async, and here to retrieve the data from there, let's use here await, because it's a asynchronous method. And when you are using the await, make sure the calling method is also async. So let me make it async here, otherwise I cannot use the await keyword over there. Then I can show the result. So console dot write line. Now finally I will get the data. So if you look at here, I'm not using here task dot result. If you remembered in the previous example what we have done with the method async1 with the method async2, we used over there result. But here we are not using the result because this await keyword will help us to provide the result after the successful execution of this asynchronous method. So that's why I'm not mentioning here result. But if I will not mention here await keyword and this async, I need to use here the result. I will show you. So let's see how it is working. Let's execute the program. Okay, one more thing we missed here. It should be here task based. So it is giving the error because we didn't make it task. Its return type is void. It should not be the void as a return type. It should be the task as a return type now because we are returning the task here. Now let's execute. Now you can see I'm getting here data. So perfectly we are able to read the data from there. So this is the way user ID 1 we are coming. It's a just to do data to understand the things over there. Now let's say I'm not keeping here await. What will happen? Now when you don't need to make it async. So you can see what I'm getting here. I'm getting here system runtime, async task builder. So I'm just getting here a generics. I'm not getting the proper result over there. So to get the result, what I need to use here, I need to use the result property over there as we used before also. Let me execute it here. Now I'm getting the result. But here if you don't want to block the execution, because when you will call the result, so what is happening, it will wait for executing this complete operation, because as a best practice we use the result over there. Let's say like this for result, then I don't need to mention the things. So the result we are using over there as we have used in the previous example. This is the one. So this is just like a synchronous call. So method is asynchronous over there, but I'm calling it just like a synchronous fashion. But if you want to call it here completely in asynchronous fashion, so don't use this style. Always use the await keyword to call it in asynchronous style like this. Now it is asynchronous. So this would be a synchronous call for this method. Now this is a asynchronous call. So one more thing you should remember here, this is a synchronous call only for this method. This method internally is going to be executed in asynchronous fashion because both the execution are separated over there. So it's a asynchronous method, but I'm calling it here in synchronous fashion. So this is the way how you can call it in the synchronous fashion. But the recommended practice is here, you should call it always in asynchronous fashion. So here in the C# a asynchronous method call can be converted into the synchronous by calling this result property over there. But if you want to make it asynchronous, means non-blocking, use the await keyword. So now it simplified the things a lot when we have used the async and await keyword. So now similar way I can call here our real REST API. Even I can perform my database operation also. When you are going to add the data into the database using the entity framework core, and whenever you are retrieving the data from the database using the entity framework core.